Imagine a world where the deadliest secrets were whispered not in dark alleys or locked offices, but in cafes, parlors, and train stations, passed by women no one thought capable of espionage. Dismissed as harmless, underestimated by both enemy and ally, these women slipped through the cracks of wartime society, carrying coded letters sewn into hems, hiding maps in bread baskets, and memorizing troop movements with the ease of casual observation. While men fought in the trenches, a silent and equally dangerous war was being waged behind enemy lines, led by an unlikely band of heroines. Some were trained agents, others ordinary women who found themselves pulled into the deadly game of intelligence. They risked everything: arrest, torture, execution, not for glory, but for conviction, for country, and sometimes simply for survival. Their faces would never appear on recruitment posters, their names rarely carved into monuments, yet their bravery rivaled and often surpassed that of soldiers in uniform. Consider Mata Hari, the most famous name among them, a woman whose life blurred the lines between fact and myth. A dancer who turned spy, she was both lionized and vilified, remembered less for her actual intelligence work and more for the symbol she became, a reminder of how women spies were often romanticized or condemned rather than understood. Beyond her legend, however, there were countless others whose stories remain buried in classified files and fading memories. Take Louise de Bettigny's, for example, a Frenchwoman whose spy network smuggled critical information across enemy lines under the noses of German patrols. Known as the Queen of Spies, she orchestrated operations that saved thousands of Allied lives, only to be captured and die in prison, her sacrifice a quiet shadow beneath the larger narrative of generals and battles. Or Edith Cavell, a British nurse in occupied Belgium who helped Allied soldiers escape, knowing full well that discovery meant death. She was executed by firing squad, but not before leaving a legacy of courage that shook even her enemies. There were countless unnamed women too, maids in officers' quarters overhearing whispered strategies, widows sheltering fugitives, market vendors passing along coded messages baked into loaves of bread. Their war was one of deception and nerves, where a wrong glance or a slip of the tongue could mean the end. Unlike the trenches, where the threat came from shells and bullets, their battlefield was one of constant suspicion, and their victories were measured in whispers, not territory. What makes their story so haunting is not just the danger they faced, but the silence that followed. After the war ended, many were forgotten, their contributions overshadowed by the narratives of soldiers and statesmen. Some returned to quiet civilian lives, carrying secrets they could never share, scars invisible but just as deep as those left by shrapnel and gas. History, with its habit of focusing on grand strategies and famous names, largely turned its back on these women, relegating them to footnotes if they were remembered at all. And yet, their impact was undeniable. Their intelligence shifted battle plans, saved lives, and in some cases, altered the very course of the war. They proved that courage wears many faces, and that heroism is not always found in charging bayonets or booming cannons. Sometimes, it is found in a steady hand passing a coded note, or in a calm voice lying convincingly to an interrogator, buying precious moments of time. World War I's forgotten female spies remind us that history is never complete without the voices that were silenced, the names erased, the heroes who worked in the shadows. Their stories are far more thrilling than fiction, because they are real, women who turned the world's underestimation of them into their greatest weapon, and who fought their war not with rifles, but with brilliance, daring, and unshakable will. To remember them is to rewrite the story of the Great War, to recognize that its victories were not only won in trenches or on battlefields, but also in whispered secrets, smuggled letters, and the relentless courage of women history almost forgot.